And peace be upon you. Welcome to another happiness happiness episode. Wow, the lights went all off. Oh, cool. Power cut for a second. Um, yeah, another happiness lesson, I should say. Episode 3, uh, and we're talking about how you can buy happiness. Please do check out previous shows because it's all, building up one on top of the other like a lesson should do. But I'm sure you can take away a lot, even if this is the first episode you're looking at. Go to bigquestionsanswer.com. All the details you need in the description if you're watching on YouTube, and probably the other places as well that I'm streaming to. Yeah, let me whiz through some of the basics. So right now I'm in Jordan in the Middle East. I'm on holiday here. I used to live in this particular house. I love it. It's 9 o'clock at night. It's an awesome time to chill out because the weather's just perfect at this time. This is a weekly happiness class, bigquestionsanswer.com. You can check out all the episodes. Yep, another thing I like to say is I appreciate it's hard to ask questions. That's just a little note I've made. So if you're just listening and enjoying and contemplating, you're very welcome. Please do feel free to ask questions though. Agree, disagree, whatever you feel like. I don't really mind people disagreeing because it helps me explain things I would have missed out. And there's loads of things I'll be missing out because you can go into more and more detail about all of these things. I've written a text summary that you can read anytime you want, also on bigquestionsanswer.com. So every lesson, happiness lesson, uh, there's a summary of what I'm saying. So I'm going to read from that summary basically. I might veer off a little bit here and there, and then I'll kind of explain. I'll go back through it again, but basically it's there for you, and I put it ahead of time so you can think about what I'm going to say and if you've got any opinions on it. Yeah, and the text summaries are not perfect at all. They're written in a rush, but I think what's there is about a million times better than the kind of so-called modern new age spiritual teachings which are really dangerous for you, and I'll talk about that in a second as part of my intro. Actually I will talk about it now. So what I'm going to say is opposite to the kind of so-called Buddhism, because most of the Buddhist quotes you hear are not even Buddhist from Buddha. It's like just made up stuff. um, all these fancy quotes. I'll give you a fancy quote that's like I just read today and I responded to, like absolutely terrible. And I'm basically teaching the opposite of those things because what is being fed to the West, and this is for a Western audience, um, is to make them happy according to their current psychological illnesses. It's not being insulting. The psychological illnesses come from individualism. So all of these new age spiritual teachings are like, oh, take care of number one. If you're hurt, ignore the people who hurt you. Don't worry about making society better. It's a really negative approach, but also it's unhealthy because it's exactly this individualistic approach that's making people sick and making people upset and sad and depressed. Um, yeah. So, for example, what did I read today? This is a quote that I just read on a Facebook web page where they talk about happiness. Um, it says, in order to heal, you must stay away from what broke you. Now that sounds reasonable at first, but first of all, it's very general. It doesn't help. Like, what broke you? People can get all. You can get upset about everything and everybody, right? So, oh, that person broke me, and then that person broke me, and then you're going to stay away from that person and that person and that person. And really, these are the kind of things I'm going to go into. Really, it was you that broke you, because if you look at a lot of Western society, there's so many people getting upset about really small things, but they've turned those small things into big things because their whole life, approach is really unhealthy. So everything becomes uh, risks destroying your happiness because your life choices are so bad. So I'll give you an example. So people in the West have this idea of falling in love, romantic love. You might think that's a nice enough idea. It's incredibly dangerous because in practice, what romantic love does is and this is just my quick intro explaining what I'm doing that's really different. What romantic love does is you say, "Oh, I've got a soulmate, and all I have to do is love that one person. That one person loves me back." And usually you're going to break up. Okay, I'm not even being negative; it's just statistically true, right? And then you've ignored everybody else selfishly. Again, that's really bad for you anyway. The rest of society, your own family don't care about. Okay, so when you break up, then that becomes a massive tragedy because that's the only person you have a relationship with, right? And then people buy a dog or a cat to make up for it, which doesn't help either because that's not the level of interaction human beings need, and so they develop other psychological problems. So that's the kind of thing. I've got 33 episodes. If you watch just 11 episodes, you're going to have all the basics of what you need to be happy, I think. I'm going to try to make it so you don't have to watch all, but there's kind of a beginner, intermediate, and then expert, I suppose, level of happiness. Um, sure, that's so. Where am I basing all these happiness teachings on? They're all from Islam. Now, why did I choose Islam? Islam is unique in a lot of really important ways, and kind of necessary for this happiness show, right? So, first of all, Islam is the only logical religion. All the other religions basically expect you to have some sort of faith, right? I'm saying literally every single thing Islam teaches is logical. It can be explained, and you can question me, and you can say, "How about this? How about that?" This is one of the things that converts to Islam absolutely love. I watched a video today, and there's a lady who converted to Islam, and she was absolutely amazed. Like, how can there be an answer to everything? And actually, life is a lot more simple than we think. But we've made it complicated because we stopped listening to God, right? You'll be surprised how easy, life can be and how happy life can be. I get a little bit distracted. There's a little kitten going, meow. We've got a lot of animals around here. They could be walking past any time. Anyway, so it's logical, it's scientific. So other religions, they say Christianity expects you to believe that the universe was made in 6 days. That's what the Bible says. All sorts of illogical things, unscientific things. Islam is the first international religion. So literally all other religions were tribal. If you go into what they actually said, for example, Jesus said, "I've only come for the 12 tribes of Israel," basically the Jews. Um, or say Islam is the first religion to do that. And also it's the most inclusive religion. It's the only religion really. I want to correct myself. Actually, it's the most inclusive religion that says that all people can go to heaven, right? I heard a rabbi say that's true as well. I didn't realize that Judaism says that. I think Islam is closest to Judaism. Um, yeah. And what else? It's the most complete. It's got an answer for absolutely everything. I would say a lot of religions don't have that. Okay, as again, Judaism probably the closest thing, but there are a lot of problems with it. I would say, like, you're allowed to drink alcohol. I don't think that's a good idea. Anyway, I could be corrected. Yeah. So, yep. Final thing I want to say. I know it's a long intro. Wow, it is a massive long intro. Ask questions anytime. You can even comment in the video afterwards. So if you don't feel like asking questions during the live show, just ask afterwards. I'm always checking out the comments. And yeah, let's get started. So today's show is called Money, How to Buy Happiness. And I have these always 7 subtitles or key points. And the first one is serve. Okay, so I'll quote from the Holy Quran. God says in the Holy Quran, so fear Allah, that is God, that's the name of God, and many religions actually, be surprised. So fear Allah as best as you can and listen and obey and spend in His cause. It will be good for yourselves. And whoso is rid of his of the covetousness of his soul, it is they who shall be successful. So the Quran is to be read in a relaxed and slow environment. That's partly why the text I've just read and the whole whatever I'm going to read is available to view anytime in the text summary on bigquestionsanswered.com. So I'm going to briefly comment on that and why that's so important and what's that got to do with serving. So this verse is saying that you should spend money on serving other people. One benefit of spending on other people, as the verse above mentions, is that it helps you against greedily buying more and more things, i.e., being covetous. By being freed from the narrow view of the world made by a covetous mindset, it will open you to lots of learning experiences and, I think I missed out a word, and lead you to being successful. So I should say, I tried to keep this as short as possible, all the points I'm making. So there's quite a lot in there to sort of unpack, and I'll go through it again. So you can think about it, what I just said. So in short, kind of 2 things I just said. By spending on other people, it releases you from your personal selfish craziness of just buying stuff and getting attached to material things. And once you've done that, once you're free, once your mind is not under blinkers of I must have, like a mental person, you're going to be open to all sorts of learning experiences. You're just going to be open to the world. And, you're going to be a more successful person. It's like the 2-eyed man is king in a 1-eyed world. You're opening up your senses rather than blinding yourself with greed. So yeah, peace is the next subheading. God says in the Holy Quran, those who devour interest do not rise except as rises one whom Satan has smitten with insanity. That is because they say trade also is like interest, whereas Allah, that is God, the name of God, has made trade lawful and made interest unlawful. Allah will missing a little bit. Allah will abolish interest and will cause charity to increase. There's a lot there as well. So I'm going to try to explain a little bit of it. Wars cost billions of pounds or whatever currency you want. No country can really afford it, but still so many keep happening. So many keep happening. So many wars keep happening. Okay. It is made possible by governments borrowing money using interest to pay for these wars, saying they will somehow pay the money back to the banks with extra money, I suppose, sometime in the future. Countries end up having to borrow even more money to pay back the money they were owed before. And so they borrow more and more with interest until the country runs out of money. When the money finally runs out. The poor must pay. What a strange system we use in the West. This is a very quick summary of what actually happened. So if you think about the 2008 uh, um, international financial crash, basically that's what happens. We basically ran out of money, and it was predictable because interest, the amount of money we had versus the amount of interest we had to pay was getting harder and harder to pay. In short, loads of people knew who were even checking any of the obvious data. There are massive ants here, so I have to check. They come out at night time. And anyway, so it happened, and then we bailed out the banks. We printed fake money and all sorts of stuff, and then it's inevitably going to happen again. There's no reason for it not to. They're just being blind to it at the moment. Anyway, so yeah, and the poor always pay. We know the poor always pay. The rich can get around the law easily, and they can find ways of not paying tax and all these kind of things, but the poor don't have any such legal tools, skills, access to lawyers and things like that, so they just end up paying. Right. This is just the beginning of this dangerous system called interest. What is more dangerous is what it does to the minds of those who use it. Have you ever thought how it is possible that the super rich destroy the environment to get even richer, even though they have to live in the world they are destroying? It is because interest makes people insane with greed in a satanic way, like the verse above describes. Now I will briefly tell you a true story about the epis and about the opposite of interest, a thing called zakat. That's the name, its name in Islam, the opposite of interest. That was used in a little town in Austria called Wurgel. So you can Google this, you can find out about it. Wurgel's people were incredibly poor, but after briefly using zakat, so they didn't know it was called zakat, there was some theory, financial theory somebody wrote, and they thought they would put it to test because they were really desperate. They had nothing going on. This is after the Wall Street crash. Yeah, so loads of people were very poor. After briefly using the zakat, the town became rich. Zakat is a system that taxes money that is not spent. So interest encourages you not to use your money, to not spend your money, just keep it in one place, because if you're rich, you get interest. If you're poor, you pay interest, basically. So yeah, it makes the rich richer and all that kind of stuff. And so zakat is exactly the opposite. It encourages you to spend your money. And always spending it generously. So they're always finding ways to invest their money, spend their money, find a service, find something to build, whatever. So people always generously spending their money in such a system. This causes a high money velocity, the speed at which money goes round, the economy, I should say. The faster it goes round, the economy, money, the more people benefit from every bit of money. So if you got a pound, you give somebody that pound, they'll use it and they'll benefit from they've got a good for it, that you give them your £1, they give somebody else that £1. That £1 goes around the economy. The faster it goes, the more people benefit from it. Okay, before it loses value or something like that. Okay. Yeah, money is like blood to the body. If it is circulating well, then the economy is healthy. So you get the opposite effect with interest. It clogs up money, in certain places amongst the rich. Yeah. So, next chapter or next subheading, God. God says in the Holy Quran, so fear Allah as best as you can. So I'm repeating the same verse because the same verse has many important meanings for what we're talking about. So fear Allah, that is the name of God, as best as you can, and listen and obey and spend in his cause. It will be good for yourselves. And whoso is rid of the covetousness of his soul, it is they who shall be successful. And yeah, I've got links to the verses of the Holy Quran, and you can find out more about the meanings of these particular verses. It's all free. You know, Holy Quran's free on the internet nowadays. You don't have to go even buy it. Easy to read and search and everything nowadays. And there'll be a link to it on my text summary that I provide, as I mentioned, at bigquestionsanswer.com for this lesson. Very easy to find. So here's my explanation or a little bit of discussion again on this verse. We are constantly being called to the dark side. Thinking, yeah, you can guess what dark side means, even if you're not a Star Wars fan. Okay. We are constantly being called to the dark side with its false promises. It tells us that we are going to live forever and that we are better off being selfish. We know both are not true. Nobody lives forever. And we can see that selfish, individualistic behavior is leading to depression. Okay, so you might say, who on earth thinks they're going to live forever? And I don't explain everything, but I might as well explain this a little bit. We all think we're going to live forever. And the reason why I say that is because none of us think how quickly time is flying by in our lives. Only maybe when we're right on our deathbeds, even really old people that I know, they've only got a couple of years left and they still don't seem to think that their time on earth is running out. We're really unaware of it. Like, ask yourself, because a lot of people aren't able to kind of psychologically critique themselves. Like if I say that, then like you don't think you're going to die. That's of course I think I'm going to die. But ask yourself, just ask this question: like, if you really thought you were going to die, obviously we kind of know we're going to die. If you really thought about it, when was the last time you thought about your death? This most inevitable thing that's definitely going to happen to you. When was the last time? Okay, now if you're one of the rare people who do, then that's different. And that's good. I'm glad you're here. Okay, because this is not really a show for everybody. Most people will follow this happiness revolution I'm talking about inevitably, because it's just logical and the most comprehensive system for finding happiness. But they will follow it later on, and people like you, the leaders, the you know. Uh, Early adopters, as you call them in marketing, I think, you're going to be spreading the word, as it were, if you first understand it, and benefit most as well. People who learn first benefit most. That's a whole different topic. You can ask me about it if you want. So yeah, what was I saying? Nobody lives forever, and selfishness is leading to depression. We can see that in the West, especially. To snap us out of this delusion, the medicine suggested is fear of God. Fear of God is the beginning of wisdom is also one of my favorite quotes from the Bible. So yeah, so Islam is, I'll quickly explain. Islam believes in all other faiths. That's why it says, you know, you can get to heaven all sorts of ways, right? We recommend Islam because it's the latest, most updated, non-tribal, a lot of the other kind of faiths were from thousands of years ago. They weren't designed for our modern times. They're not logical or scientific because they've been corrupted by people making up stuff and writing in those, but their scriptures. Yeah. So, anyways, that's what I can quote from the Bible, and that is definitely one of my favorite verses. People don't like the idea of fear of God because they don't really understand it. Um, but it's a very good psychological tool. I have fear of God all the time, but it's not like I'm shaking all the time. It's like God is really nice to me all the time, right? But I don't want to disappoint God, and I don't also. I know I've got so many faults, and I see them afterwards often. Like in a year's time, I go, "Oh my gosh, I was like that," and then I can think God knew that already, right? And yeah, so I don't take, you know, I don't try not to underestimate my messed upness. That's a really good tool to have, yeah, to a psychological tool. So fear of God gives you perspective. Let me just read it actually. Um, so, fear of God is the beginning of wisdom is also one of my favorite quotes from the Bible. It means that when you fear God, it snaps you out of your obsession with things you can buy, covetousness, and gives you some proper perspective. What is that perspective? That you're not going to be here forever, and you better find something better to do with your life than buy stuff. What should you do? As the aforementioned verse of the Holy Quran said, listen to God. God needs nothing from you. So listening to God is good for you. After listening, you might obey some of that advice. We are affected by the things we hear around us. For example, many men wear a colorful ribbon round their necks because they have heard that it makes them look smart. That ribbon I'm talking about is called a tie, and it only looks smart because other people have told us it looks smart. Otherwise, it's a silly thing to wear. So, when we hear good things from God, we begin to listen to them, which we then benefit from. I'm not sure if I should have had to explain all that in so much detail. Anyway, um, yeah, so we are very much affected by our environment, what we hear, and things like that. And so, step one is just listening to God, just being surrounded by God's advice, reading the Quran, sayings of Prophet Muhammad, etc., listening to this. Yeah. Next, subheading Women. Once upon a time, most households had a housewife that made food for the family and took care of the children. Then industrialization happened, and many women stopped cooking. Frozen food was invented, and it was shipped around the world to get to our houses, which began to destroy our planet. You know, you don't want to ship food around the world, do you? It costs a lot of, you know, fuel and all sorts of whatever. Okay, fumes. Um, mhm. So we started destroying the planet. We began to eat so unhealthily that we started making ourselves sick with new diseases like diabetes. You you might be surprised to hear how destructive not having a mother taking care of the house can be. So maybe you should search YouTube for TED Talk, What's Wrong with What We Eat. The talk is actually about food, but the talker accidentally talks about the importance of housewives. Most women hate going to work and prefer to be housewives if they can afford it. There was a survey apparently, and that's my experience actually. I'm a teacher and I hear that all the time really. Most women really hate being at work. Okay. But there's a group called feminists, who call themselves feminists, I should say, that tell women that they should work so that they become powerful or independent of their husbands. They view relationships as a battle. No wonder relationships are in such a terrible state in the West. One second. Yeah, so yeah, I think you understood that. There's a group called feminists. I would say I'm a real feminist, and the so-called feminists are anti-women. They have personal problems, and they've made some materialistic choices. They don't call it materialistic choices, they call it empowerment. And they are encouraging other women to follow them. But most other women don't really want to follow them, but they're relatively quiet, most other women. So yeah, that's what I'm saying there. Okay. God says in the Holy Quran, men are guardians over women because Allah, that is God, has made some of them excel others. Okay, and because men spend out of their wealth. So virtuous women are those who are obedient and guard the secrets of their husbands with Allah's protection. Okay. So Islam teaches men and women are different. It urges men and women to take advantage of their natural differences to specialize and so become effective as a family. Women have been shown by psychology have been shown to be, I think, by psychologists to be more careful and more agreeable, which makes sense given that they give birth to babies and are designed to keep them alive. Doesn't really talk about their agreeableness, but yeah, I would say they have a very important social job. Okay, and so being social has been so undervalued in this individualistic society. So, yeah, so women have these special qualities. Yeah. Somebody screaming. Anyway, some kid. Okay. So we're different. We're more effective if we specialize in our natural abilities. Women are obviously different because of their biological differences. Can talk about that if you want, if you disagree. Men, on the other hand, have been shown to like things, I'm missing words, rather than people. That means we're more interested in things than people. So our natural bent of mind. It's just something that psychologists have shown. So this is statistically true, right? Okay. So they do better with technology and industry. What I mean by industry is like even if you're a chef, it's industrial cooking. Okay, it's very precise. It's not personal. All this kind of stuff. It's very different to house cooking. That's why most of the greatest chefs are basically men, just a different approach. Okay, men and women need each other to complement each other's differences. So it's not a competition between men and women, which is what we see unfortunately nowadays in relationships, and it's destroying society, destroying relationships in so many ways, even like in sexual relationships. Like, if you're competing with each other, you're not going to be good in bed. Um, Women need a dominant man to be aroused, for example, and we talk about sex in one of the lessons um, in more detail. Okay, yeah, there we go. We need to complement each other, take advantage of each other, so we help each other and become more successful. So basically, I pointed out this idea of specializing. When you specialize, you massively improve your outcomes. Okay, so I can be a generalist. I can try to be everything. Like I can be, I don't know, a farmer. I can be a really rubbish brain surgeon. Okay, and I can be a math teacher. I don't know. I can do everything, right? But I'm going to do everything really badly because I'm not specializing. But if we all specialize and then do each our bits, we massively improve the world. So that's the value of specialization. Um, there's there's biological specialization. Rather than fight our biology and natural design, go with it. That's the teaching of Islam. Makes you hugely more successful with hardly any effort, or relatively less effort. Okay, the main reason why people are moving away from giving families importance is because they are being pulled by short-term greed for buying things. They tell themselves that they need more things. However, if men and women were more supportive of each other and patient, they would be more successful if they kept to their specializations. I feel like I didn't explain that very well, that point at all. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that even if you're in a relationship, looking at a massive ant, about that big, okay. Um, if even if you're in a relationship, people, men and women, or women, let's say, start saying, "Oh, I need the extra car, you know, I need this, I need that. I'm going to go and do a job," and usually those jobs are really low paid, and we can talk about statistically why that is and all that kind of stuff, right? And so for relatively tiny amount of money, they sacrifice the well-being of their family because that tiny amount of so-called tiny amount of time they take out on these jobs, um, it really takes away a massive amount from their families, and then all sorts of imbalances happen in the family. People go to the extremes and go, "Oh, I must have a full-time job. I have a right to do that." I watched a movie just the other day. It's like I want. It's called Night School, and it's like the lady standing up for her rights that she doesn't want to take care of her family. She wants to go to work. Whatever. How silly is that, right? Like the smart women or the rich women tend not to go to work if they can afford because they can afford it, and it's better that way. Um, Equality. Wow, I'm actually going through this pretty slowly. Let's whiz through it now. Anytime you want, just stop me and all that kind of stuff. Equality. God says in the Holy Quran, and I'm repeating this verse as well. Those who devour interest do not rise except as rises one whom Satan has smitten with insanity. That is because they say trade is also like interest, whereas Allah has made trade lawful and made interest unlawful. Allah will abolish interest and will cause charity to increase. There's a lot more I can explain than I'm going to say from this text summary, but let's just see what it says here, what I've written. It is amazing that one use of money can create so much wealth, while its opposite robs the poor to give to the rich, enables wars, and even makes money worth less. So there's interest and there's the Zakat system. Okay, so the interest is a thing that is really destructive, causes wars, devalues money, robs the rich to give to the poor. Nope, the other way around, robs the poor to give to the rich. Okay, interest is a system where the rich give money to the poor as long as the poor give even more money back. That way, the rich get richer and the poor work harder. If they don't work hard enough, they usually lose their house or something. That was just one example, but this is what happens in the richest countries in the world, like the US. Currently, there are over 18 million empty homes in the US, enough for every homeless person there to have 6 houses. Okay, right, success. Most people's idea of success is to be rich. It has been shown that being rich does not make us happy. You might not like to hear that, as most people want to be rich. You are free to ignore the facts. What makes us happy is doing good things and following a good purpose. There can be no better purpose than following the advice of God, who knows what is best for you. So, by the way, I've talked about, the reason why it makes logical sense to believe in God. You shouldn't fall for the propaganda that science says God does not exist. That's just really is propaganda. Um, yeah, so you can go and so just be aware of that. Check out previous episodes. Even ask me about it now, if you want. So I'm just not just mentioning God as if it's a default thing you should just believe in. By the way, that's what I'm saying. So where was I? There can be no better purpose than following the advice of God, who knows what is best for you. What is best for you is to be good. And what is good? It is the right action at the right time. For example, you might think it is a good idea to give money to homeless people, but experts say it is better to give food. Um, it is better to give food, as some homeless people might use the money for drugs. So being good is not simple. The best way to be good and so the best way to be good and so do good for yourself and the world around you is to listen to God, who is the most wise. What I have said about being successful is again based on God's words in the Holy Quran. So fear Allah as best as you can and listen and obey and spend in his cause. It will be good for us, for yourselves, and whoso is rid of the covetousness of their soul, it is they who shall be successful. So that little explanation was based again on this verse. Unlimited, here we go. So hold fast to contentment, for it is enduring wealth. That's a saying from Prophet Muhammad. Imagine you were the richest person in the world. So it's pretty itchy here, lots of mosquitoes. Imagine you were the richest person in the world. Then one day you found out there was a flavor of ice cream that you've never had. This caused you to be unhappy. Wouldn't that be silly? This is a sickness that we all fall for. We have so much, but we can't see it. There is a trick that can solve this problem so you can see how rich you are. Look at those who are below you, and do not look at those who are above you, for that is more likely to hold you back from belittling the blessings that Allah has bestowed upon you. That's something Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said. Okay, look at those who are below you and do not look at those who are above you, for that is more likely to hold you back from belittling the blessings of that Allah has bestowed on you. So you have been given loads of things, but we belittle them, we disrespect them. Okay, but we can undo that psychological fault in our brain, okay, of disrespecting the blessings, the many blessings we have, by not thinking about, oh, look at what that person's got on social media. Do exactly the opposite. Say, look, oh, that person has got not doesn't have this and that person doesn't have that, and then you start realizing how lucky you are. Okay, our brains easily get confused when we see something that others have that we do not. We do not need everything in the world. What is worse, okay, something. Okay, what is worse is that we make ourselves miserable by ignoring all the things that we do have. By concentrating our thoughts on those who have less than we have, we begin to remember how lucky we are and we start feeling happy again. Once you realize how lucky you are with what you have, it will be difficult to count all the things you have. You will begin to feel like the luckiest person on earth, especially as you look around yourself and you see how unhappy people are with what they have. I want to be realistic as possible when I because I want this guide to happiness to actually help you. I struggle with this stuff all the time. The key to me accepting any change is in the meaning of the word Islam. So when I say change, that means like, okay, um, I've just said you need a psychological shift. That's a change in your thinking, but we can be resistive to that. Okay, and the key for my personal success in becoming more and more free and happier is this one thing, and it's literally in the meaning of Islam. So if you follow this key teaching of Islam, it helps in endless ways. Like literally understand the word Islam and follow it, follow that advice. That is the key benefit of Islam, and that what the benefit is to let go of your ego. Not just let go of your ego. What have I written here? Okay, and that is to let go of my ego or remind myself I am not important. In exchange, I become free. When I am free, I am able to take on all this beautiful advice I am telling you about here. Without being humble, you will hear the truth but struggle to follow it. Being happy with what you have, being content, that is, does not mean you will not feel like doing anything with your life. Always focus on being of service to people, and even more good things will naturally come your way. This is because by learning how to help people, you will learn valuable knowledge that can make you more money, but also get you excited about how you can make the world better. Cool. So I've got to the end, and yeah, I was gonna scroll right back to the top and start explaining all sorts of details that I avoided, just because it would take too long. Okay. So serve If you want to be happy, serve people. That is the you know, the number one way to really find happiness. Um, it gives you a sense of fulfillment. You become less self-obsessed. You end up having all sorts of social interactions. These are key things that actually make us happy. Not, for example, if I buy some really nice chocolate milkshake, I'm just thinking about something that happened the other day, right? And I'm not really sharing it and I'm just having it by myself, it's nowhere near as cool and as make you happy as it kind of just goes in. You think it's going to make you really happy, but it doesn't really make you happy. But what does make you happy is like taking that one bit of milkshake and sharing with other people, and you have this shared experience of that milkshake. And actually, you don't need much food really, so it's just kind of for fun really. You're having this milkshake, and you go, "Oh yeah, that was a good milkshake, wasn't it? Yeah, yeah, it was a great milkshake. Yeah, how do you like that? "Oh, yeah, it was okay, just that shared interaction is the stuff that makes you happy. So, um, God says in the Holy Quran, so fear Allah as best as you can and listen and obey and spend in His cause. It will be good for yourselves. And whoso is rid of the covetousness of his soul, it is they who shall be successful. So spend in his cause, that means his cause is basically to do, be nice to humanity. That's what God wants you to do. Okay. The verse is saying that you should spend money on serving other people. One benefit of spending on other people, as the verse mentioned, is that it helps you against greedily buying more and more things. So covetousness, like being obsessed with coveting things like I wish I had that and I wish I had that and I love all the stuff I want and I don't want to let go of it, and you start collecting and collecting and it's a never ending um cycle of just wanting more and more stuff. Okay, so if you serve other people, it's kind of like medicine. It's like you're spending on other people, just get rid of some of this money, and it's kind of like gets rid of the toxins, as it were, inside you, the spiritual toxins, and it stops you from having this very limited mindset that you can be trapped into. You're warped thinking of I want, I want, I want. If you just spend like, whoa, I've stopped getting mental for stuff, right? And when you spend on other people, it's been shown that's it's in a psychological test that you actually become more happy spending on other people than for yourself. And that totally makes sense if you think back to my milkshake example. Like, you don't need the milkshake that you're having. Really, you really don't need it. Yeah, like maybe you need a bit of water to stop dying from thirst or something, right? But you don't really need much stuff. But if you spend it on other people, you get the joy of like, oh yeah, thanks. The other guy goes, thanks, man, that's so nice of you. And then you get the connection, you get have a conversation. And if you're good about yourself, because remember, this is the one thing that people really don't understand. We don't get happy by consuming and getting stuff. We keep telling ourselves that because that's our dark side telling us, like, go on, be selfish. It's actually doing stuff for other people. Okay. And you have to keep pushing yourself to do those things. And then you will be way, way happier than everybody around you. I mean, that's my experience. Whenever I go to work in different places, I'm much happier than everybody else. Yeah, they can say it, and people even say, like, they're not happy, but I'm like the opposite end of the scale to them, and it's really obvious. Um, I mean, I'd say it's really, really obvious because people like don't even believe that they can really be happy. So many of them. So yeah, they don't act happy either. So yeah, it's pretty obvious. And so that's what I'm saying to you. Just do what I'm saying. Be nice to people. Be grateful. Be of service to people. Your job and everything will start being loads more fun, and you just feel happy. You'll like yourself. That's really important. This is one thing people really don't understand. If you're unhappy, it's because you don't like yourself. You are doing things. Um, you are doing selfish things that make you feel bad about yourself. There's a conscience thing inside your head, just monitoring everything you do, your thoughts, and it's finding what is this guy about, what is this gal about, right? Is this person about serving other people, basically? Then that's a nice guy. He's going to be happy. You let yourself be happy. Um, and we know this kind of stuff, right? Like, what's that phrase? How do you sleep at night? You know, if you're doing bad things, your conscience is like gonna beat the crap out of you, okay, and you're gonna be miserable. Yeah, however much stuff you have. Okay. Peace. So the thing I wanted to say about I want you to realize that happiness is not just about knowing secrets that help you personally. You also have to have a wider perspective and say, how can you make the world a better place? We love to make the world a better place, us humans. Okay, it's what gets us excited about. So one of those things is know how to have peace on the world, in the world, right? Not wars. Wars are absolutely shocking things. You know, we're lucky in the West, we don't have to suffer from them. It's just on our news, right? But imagine your house broke down and your wife died or your children died. You wouldn't want even an ounce of what's you kind of stuff you see on TV, right? So peace, how can you have peace? Well, this interest stuff is incredibly dangerous. In fact, one of the many things I didn't mention is that it's actually forbidden in Judaism. Now, some Jews get around it. They say, well, it's forbidden for us, but God didn't say we couldn't, charge other people an interest and stuff like that. Okay, but God didn't say you should even be speaking to, you're not even supposed to have many interactions with non-Jews in the first place, right? As Jews. Um, so, because of very tribal religion. Jesus said, "I've only come for Jewish people." He barely even liked to talk to non-Jews, right? And definitely didn't want to teach them. It's in the Bible. Okay, so the point is, interest being forbidden in Judaism technically should be forbidden in Christianity, but Christianity, the modern version, is so weird. In fact, there's no such thing as Christianity really, because again, as I said, Jesus only taught Judaism. So yeah. Whatever. So the point is, this incredibly dangerous stuff, disinterest, it enables wars and it encourages greed, really crazy greed, um, and it causes all sorts of insane situations which I haven't really talked about. So, for example, what does interest basically do? It says you work X amount of money, toil for your work, but you have to keep paying more and more interest, because once you pay interest, you have to pay more interest and more interest. And so it forces economies to have to grow. If they don't grow, their GDP is not growing. This is what you'll see, okay, is expected in Western countries. If your economy is not growing, you are in trouble. The reason that is because it's based on interest. It's like we owe millions and millions of pounds, literally billions of pounds, really, even trillions, maybe. I'm not sure. And so, if you're not keeping up with that, you're going to die. And what does that mean in the real world, like in terms of the resources of the world? That means the world has to keep pumping out more and more and more stuff to keep up with this craziness of interest. So it's really destructive for the environment in so many ways. Um, yeah, but in a non-interest based system, it's like we just use what you have, and then you don't need to produce more than you need, because that's what, just growing for the sake of growing to keep up with interest payments is nuts. Okay, but if you don't have to do that, you just grow what you need. You don't destroy the environment completely unnecessarily. So anyway, I'm in the last minute or a few seconds. See how many seconds I got? 20 seconds. I just want to say thank you, everybody who's watched. Please do share, like the video if you believe in what I'm saying, because if you like the video, then maybe more people, the YouTube algorithm will tell other people, you know what, watch this video. And I truly believe this stuff will change your life. It's so important, even if a few people are watching it. This is the stuff that's really important. Thank you for watching. Bye. Peace be upon you. Until next week.